Alrighty, let's do this.
Enemy seen.
Excuse me.
I like the attempt. I was a little far away. So generally, as McCree as well, if we were running like this Hog 6 stuff, your range is kind of short, right? This is like kind of like Ash Widow territory, shooting down this area, right? So what you want to do is ask your Sig to come play left side with you for a bit, and you shoot some shots here until they respawn, right? Either the Echo starts flying at you or whatever, and then you drop back, right? This is not really your home. You don't really do a whole lot from here, and it just made you kind of sad. Also, the Mercury just flanked. Interesting. Didn't notice that. Yeah.
Let's start over at the beginning.
You're playing too far in the open, right? And you also only get a certain number of shots before people react, right? So just in general, like people love jumping at McCree because he's got a big hitbox, he has minimal mobility, and he dies fast, right? And he's really valuable as well, right? So he's like a Zen, right? He explodes and he's value, right? So first, when you start taking these shots, you're going for like a quick 3-tap, and if you don't get it, like you're leaving, right? Like 3, maybe 4-tap, right? Like if you see what shot you're on right now, you've used all 6, right? And this is like when you realize that you're too late. And also, again, like when like you get a couple free shots where you can like have really binary, like very like straight, like very obvious movement while you're aiming. But again, after your 2 to 3 free shots, right? This Echo's looking at you. She's going to be shooting back. If you stand still, you're going to eat a lot of damage because Echo does a lot. It does just like like 45 damage minimum, like at this range, per shot. So again, like you respond a little bit faster to the expectation of damage, right? So that sounds kind of funky, but the idea is like when you start shooting, in a couple seconds you are going to get shot, right? So you need to start preemptively backing and mixing up your movement, right? So you get a couple of free shots, right? So this is 1. 3. This is when you like should not be going forward anymore, right? You can't clear this area because anyone in this general area will shoot at you, right? You got to like already be backing, so you're behind this corner, right? And considering rolling and like in a random direction, right, either right or left, so you can dodge the stickies that she might have here. It looks like does she have stickies? She doesn't have stickies. But another case, like this would be around the timing they would sticky if they had it, right? So you want to be ready to like roll it right or left based on whether it's sticky, whether or not they shoot it, and you want to be backing up so you don't get blasted from the sides that you're not looking at, right? Again, expectation of damage. You're going to get shot. You need to be backing in advance so you don't die.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
That's unfortunate.
It's time.
Back into the mix.
Alright, so you want to be going one of the high grounds right now. You also don't really have a pocket this game. You can ask for the Mercy to pocket you. But in the absence of having a pocket, you need to emphasize like late flanks, right? So if you want to go high ground right side or high ground left side, you just kind of chill by the door, right? Just kind of chill here. And then as your team starts walking out, then you push out the door and see if you can get a kill, right? If you don't get a kill, again, expect a response, right? And like preemptively start backing towards a health pack or towards your team, or like backing into the doorway so they can't like easily dive you, right? And then if they like back off, then you try again, right? That's the wrong person. We're going low ground, it's just like the worst of both worlds, right? Like A, you're still really easy to dive, and B, you can't do anything from low ground as McCree. That was probably a flashbang you should have hit. Don't really have anything to flash except the ball. Again, if you're on high ground, you really don't get caught by this spam, right? If you're up here, right? Like it's just a different game, right? If supports can afford to go low ground because the supports both have high ground access, right? But you don't have that. You need to go high ground initially. Either side doesn't really matter. Oh, sorry. But yeah, like again, it doesn't. which side you go is less important than the fact that you went high ground, right? And then from there you can make a judgment on whether it was the correct call. But again, if you don't go high ground, you don't actually know which one's better because you were low ground.
Hold up now.
You're just like looking at trying to find people. Like you've only been able to shoot this ball this entire time. Not the ball. The sig the entire time because like again like your angles are terrible from low ground. Whereas you're up here, you can shoot at more things, right? There's just more stuff that you can shoot at. Alright, you gotta know your flashbang range. It's like the 3rd or 4th flashbang that you've like just not hit the range on. I don't know how much this is really aggressive positioning. If you're gonna get this aggressive, right? If you're gonna play low ground on cart, right, into the enemy team, walking forward instead of playing high ground or like a defensive angle, that means you just need to be chasing the ball, right? You just need to get into this room and start like running at the ball. Because like this is super dangerous. Alright, now you look at the ball, but he's already back. Alright, you're going high ground. High ground, yes. Oh, there you go. Nice. Alright, when you're going this way, don't just blindly walk this way. You need to take a second and check behind you to make sure no like their McCree isn't coming up here as well behind you, right? So you just roll, and you start walking, you start looking, right? And this while you're backing up, and we confirm no one's following you, then you just like then you stop paying attention to it, right? Just keep looking back and forth between the door and the top of the stairs to make sure there's no ambush. But if you just walk this way, you can just randomly die sometimes, right? A ball might just like roll out here and just boop you off the edge because he saw you going this way, right? So like, don't set yourself up for failure. Just keep collecting information. Okay, so now you check, but you need to check earlier, right? When you were crossing the. Earlier, okay. So when you see the Sig go up, Sig can't do anything when he's flying, right? On top of that, he can't go anywhere because he's flying, right? And then you see the burst flying, right as you see that, that's an instant high noon. You just jump high noon, right? Jump forward high noon, and this is like a 2K, almost guaranteed.
Helden sterben nicht.
This is super ambitious. No! I thought you were setting for a flank play, but you were just trying to take the right side high ground. Alright. When you come up the left side stairs, if you want to rotate to the high ground, you go this way. It's safer. If you want to go this way, this is I am trying to kill you guys from here, right? This is I will shoot you or high noon or do whatever, right? If you're going across like this, you're gambling the fact they don't see you, so you can drop and get a high noon play or get like easy headshots from above or high noon or do something. This is an aggressive play. Trying to cross directly over their heads and jump to the high ground is death the majority of the time. They didn't actually know what to do about it, so you lived, but like this is still death, right? You're gonna die here. Oh my god, no way. Oh my god, it worked. Just gonna get rest probably? Does it have rest? But like, yeah. That's not how you use the high ground. Right. So a whole soldier has even more independent high ground play. Even more, right? You just play the high ground by yourself, any high ground, really. And you just play like a rat, and everyone comes to chase you around, you either shoot them to death, or you run away, and then you shoot them to death, right? And that's kind of your whole game plan as a soldier. There's situations where you play with your team, if everybody's playing this, like, for example, on third, right? There's one high ground, right? There's one high ground, so everybody plays it, and then you can just stand there with them, right? But, for example, you can just play, like, the more aggressive part of it, because you have heal pad, right? And if it turns out that they're all on a low ground or something, and then, like, you can't get a great angle from there, you can actually just run around this side, and get an angle on this side, right? And just play a super aggressive angle. As soldier, you can flank a lot. Although that said, like, you can also just stay here. This is still a really great spot if, like, they're underneath you. But yeah, a soldier, you're just, like, even more about high ground, right? Like, as soon as you walk into spawn, instead of shooting here, you should be just, like, running back into spawn to get to high ground. That's your ultimate priority. This doesn't matter. If you're going to play here, you might as well have played, like, what's a better analogy? You might as well have played, like, Hanzo or something, or Genji. That can take high ground easily, and then like shoot here and then climb the high ground behind you, right? Because like if you're gonna play like these hit scans, right? Or like Ashe, but even Ashe, you'd much rather just like come out of spawn, like get over here, jump up to the high ground, and play this angle, right? Like as soldier, right? Like you need to get to high ground, and if you don't have easy access, you have to like book it out of spawn. Like this mid range shooting has no impact. Good choice. The only exception is if your team's trying to hold the cart before it gets to this door, right? So if your team's trying to do that, well, first you're probably on the wrong hero for that. Soldier's not the best for that. And then second, at that point, instead of running in like this, you actually want to go either over here to get taken off a separate angle, right? Or run it up these stairs on the left, so that way you get this angle, right? And then you can potentially like backdoor them, right, later on in the fight, right? As they're retreating, you just come out these stairs and you backdoor, right? But again, emphasize like elevated areas or off angles, right? Like do not stay with your team. The only times you have to do that are in very specific dive scenarios where you just camp your supports with heal pad. This is not one of them, so.
Adaptive circuits engaged. Junkrat.
Again, you had time to, after this fight to just like run up these stairs and get over here, or like run this way up the stairs, get to here, right? Or just run into your spawn. This is a long way, obviously we want to avoid this, but like get to here. But you need to get up here somehow, right? And the longer you wait here, the worse it gets. Yeah, your hiding spot was probably just ducking into this corner and hoping for the best. It was probably not the cart. Because again, the cart's also really far forward. So even if he doesn't get lifted, you probably die in the aftermath.
No, stop it.
I'm not a young man anymore.
That poke doesn't matter. Shoot the guy in the high ground, right? Depending on how bad the player is, he might just panic and jump off the high ground, right? So just shoot those people. Shoot the people on the high ground and not the just reliable, easy targets. Either, again, as soldier, you play long angles and flanks, right? So, and high ground. So you either go this way, right? And shoot them over here, and threaten going up to the high ground. Or you run this way, play the long angle, and shoot them. And threaten to, like, backdoor, like, this potentially over here, but, like, you have a mega, so you have an escape. It's not as good, but sometimes, like, playing here is impossible, right? So if you can't play here, right, you play here. But if you can, you should play here, right? And so if you beat this, this Echo here, you can just shoot her down on her way in, or force her out, right? And then either rotate high ground or just camp this spot because it's not actually that bad. It's still elevated. It's got a lot of distance between you and the enemy team. You just have to watch your flank on the left. You should see that coming based on like, you know, if the McCree walks this way, you should see him going that way, right? And like you have the mini that you can potentially get really aggressive with, right? You can go high ground, right? There's a lot of things you do, and you only have one real flank to worry about, right? So, and it's not even a real flank because you can kind of see it. It's a pretty good soldier spot or in like an Ash Mercy spot, etc. But yeah, you do need to go this way. Oh, you're walking out when you're purple. Alright, you got it. You're not Reaper. If you're purple, you're sad. You're big sad. So if you're purple, wait, you're not being purple. So right now, right, you're missing health already, and you're purple, right? You should be backing up a little bit. And if you want to keep shooting, you can, right? But you want to do it from like back here, right? Where you're not getting caught by incidental spam on your tanks, right? So again, like if your tanks are playing aggressive, right? Or if your tanks are like as soldier, you want to like play like far away, right? High ground or flanks, and none of those involve standing near your tanks, right? You only give tanks when it's like convenient, and like I don't know, when it's dive or something, and they come back to center. You just drop a heal pad on them if like your supports are busy. But for the most part, you just very rarely play with your tanks as soldier. There's actually no living there. It doesn't matter if you get caught by this or not. Oh, you didn't even get caught by it. You died this time first. Next.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Wow. Junks and braggers.
Come out and face me!
Allow me to
Alright, you need to be looking for some kind of value wall earlier. When you're running Maycoms, into dive, or just like anything that like you have to spend a lot of time chasing down. Wall is a really great way to catch people. So in this case, right, if you just like walled this spot right here, right, the sig can't drop, right? So a second ago, the sig was starting to run, and you saw it happening, right? So as you're running through, right, there's the chaos, right? Everyone's running in circles, right? So if you walled behind the sig, you kill the sig, right? And the echo actually came in the room, you probably will kill the echo as well, right? If you just wall behind the sig, he dies. You don't wall, right? You have to come out, right? If you wall right here, sig still dies, right? Sig's still dead if you just wall this spot, right? So you don't wall this, and then your final wall is here, right? And this doesn't do anything, right? You need to look for chokes that you can wall constantly. This is why Mei is so hard for most DPS players, because they're not used to thinking like this. You just have to think it in terms of chokes, in terms of space, in terms of line of sight, and what you can wall to like really screw with, right? So in a lot of cases, you're looking to trap people with wall and kill them. In some cases, you're looking just to separate them, right? In order to like divide them from their healing, stuff like that, and kill them. That's if they're better against playing against Mei. If they're not very good at playing against Mei, you get just tons of freebies of people who just like back themselves into a spot that you can wall, right? And you just wall and you kill them. But you have to think in terms like this, because if you don't, like you just don't get a lot of value if they're not running like an easy to like separate comp like Rhine. You're also holding freeze too much. You're spending a ton of ammo on your freeze, and you're not getting any ult. So you just gotta keep shooting icicles until they like get close enough to actually freeze, right? And it needs to be a target that's worth freezing, right? Don't try and freeze a tracer. Try and freeze like if it's gotta be like a sig or something, right? So, but if like you're wasting a lot of ammo and you're not building any ult because you're not shooting icicles, like you're still trying to freeze, right? The card is so far away. This is the problem, by the way, as a team with like rotating this way, is no one walks a cart, right? And then the card is back here for years. This junk is so sad. Trying to let this guy out. As soon as the sig walks through this choke, you're looking to wall him, right? And you're telling your Rhine to stay nearby. Your Rhine already left, so it's just you and the Zarya. But like, you're just kind of like waiting to wall him as soon as he tries to come through this choke, right? That's what you're aiming for.
Coming up.
Again, when you're playing Mei, everything is now about the wall, right? So like, with only a handful of exceptions, right? So like, make sure you hit the wall, right? Take the time. Like, start aiming the wall a little bit early, so that way you make sure you hit it, right? Take time on the wall. React about it. You should ice block that. You don't even need to like ice block for that long, right? Because like ice block makes you invulnerable and it dispels everything. So you just ice block, it'll like the stickies will just like they'll either disappear or they'll drop or something like that. You either wait out the sticky duration, or they disappear. I don't know exactly how the interaction works. So they either disappear or they explode on your ice block, right? In either case, like you just ice block just long enough for the stickies to be negated, and then you just like let go and start moving, right? But you can't just like tank the stickies, so you're too low for that. So ice block, it's got like healing on it, which is nice, but its main purpose is invulnerability, right? Invulnerability plus dispel, right? You can dispel on an aid and things like that, right? And to like buy you time to get help, right? So it's okay to just use it for the like a brief second or two of invulnerability, right? It's a big cooldown, but it's not so big that you can't like just like use it and then break it immediately, right? In order to like dodge certain things, right?
This fight is not over yet.
No. You can still like shoot just over it, right? Doesn't really change your sightlines very much. If you want a wall, you need to like throw the wall up there, right? It might not even be in range, but that's what you got to try to do, right? Or just like rely on your movement and your Rhine to get you around the Widow, because this wall doesn't really change much. Wall to like chase down the Sigma. Like imagine having a wall with this Cole as they try to get around the corner and you just wall the choke, right? Can you imagine how strong that would be, right? This is how you have to think constantly, right? It's like, what if I just walled that choke, right? Then they can't go anywhere, right? There's a Cole hitting them while they can't go anywhere, right? You catch all three of these guys here, they just die, right? So you look. Cole comes out. These guys are in horrible positions, right? But imagine as they try to back through this spot, you just wall them, right? This is disaster for them, right? Like it just looks so bad, right? But you just don't have it because you used it too early. again, like don't over.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Adaptive circuits engaged.
It's a good spot to just keep going. Okay, it's not bad. There's like because the follow-up's not really coming from behind him, right? Like your Zarya's in there spawn killing the Ana, right? Like this wall doesn't realistically block much, but like if you're not sure, like it's better to err on the safe of like on the side of caution, right? So it's fine. Oh, if you don't know where the mines are, be careful with just walking into the minefield. Yeah, so like yeah, if you don't know where the mines are, be really careful about just like running in, right? You know they're here, right? You don't know exactly where they are, but like you just kind of ran into the field. Oh, it was all on top of you. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so now we have rush knock, right? So we don't have our Rhino Lie, but we do have our Lucio and we do have our Junk, right? So if you just wanted to, if the Sig hung around the choke, if you just like ran at him and walled behind him, he'd probably die, right? That's what we're mainly looking for. It's like free wall kills. Again, stop freezing. Like the range is not as long as you think it is, and like the damage against shields is like not very good in terms of like the ammo usage, right? So like icicles are 10 ammo as, per shot. You get 1 per second, and then freeze is like I think 20 stacks per second. So it's like you get 6 seconds of freeze or 12 seconds of shooting icicles, right? And icicles do 75 damage per shot, so 7.5 damage per stack, per stack. And freeze is like, I don't know the numbers, probably like 45 or 50 DPS, something like that. I don't know. No, that's way too high. Like 30 DPS? I have no idea. But the point is, it's super damage inefficient to just spam the left click as opposed to spamming the right click. So again, if you're just shooting shields, use your right click, right? If there's nothing to shoot, shoot your right click, right? Just hold down right mouse button until you need to freeze.
Seamen need aid. The payload moves.
This is like your first Blizzard actually? Right? You're just really struggling to build ult. Also, quick note: when you're against vertical things and you're not sure about especially against Genji when they go up and down a lot, just kind of spray like up and down a lot, and see like which way they path into. Because like your gun is a projectile, which makes it kind of hard to land. And with the case of the Echo, if her move is predictable, you have to aim in front of her. You can't just aim at her unless you're very close. Because so we slow this down, right? If you look at your spray, right? Your spray is always going to be just above her, right? Because you're trying to track her instead of like actually aiming underneath her, right? Which is where she's going to be. So just aim at her feet, is what I'm saying, I guess. So first of all, this should be icicles, and second, if you want to freeze, you need to aim low, not high, because she's falling, because it's Echo, right? If she flies away, like if she presses shift right now, you can't kill her. Just you can't freeze her rather. So there's no point aiming high at all, right? You just aim below at her feet with her freeze if you want to freeze, right? If you're aiming way too high, so like even though you're tracking her perfectly, right? Even though that was perfect tracking, every single stack went too high, right? So again, aim low. So again, if you feel like you might have to use ice block, or not again, but if you feel like you have to use ice block, don't use wall, right? Just ice block first, and then wall, and that way you have wall to get aggressive with later, or to cover your retreat, right? Oh, break it off. Maybe not the wall. Having a wall right now, right here, pretty good, right? That's how you have to think about wall, right? Don't keep freezing the Sig, keep freezing the Rhine. Oh my god, you almost got shattered. You're so lucky. Alright, you need to push forward and get so this is going to be really nitpicky, but it kind of matters. What you're aiming at right now? What are the odds that somebody is still here based on what you see from your team, right? Just like looking at your team. Your Moira's aiming on the right, your Zarya's like way past you aiming on your right, and you got a Junkrat clear on your left, right? So clearly there's no one here, right? There's no one in this area, there's no one here, right? So that means when you come around the corner, you should already be looking. So that way you can see things, right? And charging a right click because it takes like a half second or whatever to ramp to actually like appear, right? But the problem is like you come around the corner and like you've been able to see this Mercy for a little bit longer than you actually like realized because you didn't turn the corner facing the Mercy, right? So you came around the corner like this and then you turned to look, right? So when you do this, you waste time, like where you can look at things and process, right? And like get time to actually consider what's going on, and you also just aim like pre-aiming your icicle time, right? Note that up, right? Oh no! Ah, okay. This is the wall, right? This is the wall right here. As also, this is too big for the wall, so like this wall will only slow them down, right? And probably won't get a kill. It's just pressure, right? So you should be what your priority here isn't necessarily looking for a wall, right? Hitting a wall is nice, but your priority is hitting icicles. But like you're like, I guess you're lagging. I'm not sure what that wall is. I guess you're lagging. Like you haven't hit an icicle yet. Ice block. If you're, oh my god.
I shall seize the
If you're low health, just ice block. Make sure you don't die.
Repairing the damage.
Yeah, but you literally haven't hit an icicle since like you won the fight.
I will fire.
Get into position.
See the frame drops.
Looks like I was just right.
Good, keep spamming. Good. As a team, you should probably also go high ground, but like that's not really on you per se, unless you want to call it. If you get lifted there, you need ice block because you know the McCree's behind you and you know that you walled, right? So because you know he's behind you and you know that you walled, if you get lifted up, right, he's going to shoot you. So you have to ice block that. It's also a good habit in general against Sigult because if you cancel right as you're going up, you'll actually like maintain momentum for a second, right? So what you can do actually is you can leverage the Sigult to actually take high ground. You just like sling yourself in the air with ice cube. Not necessarily the most ideal play, but it would have been possible, right? Just inform you how the interaction works. But either way, you should have ice cubed in the air at some point, so you didn't get high noon.
Wait for me!
Enemy contact.
Remember that when you're spamming icicles, you have 12 shots, right? That's a lot of shots. So you can actually just like afford to just keep spamming. Like you have like double the shots of McCree, right? You don't have to reload all the time. Just keep shooting, right? You only want to reload before going into like a close range fight because that's when you need full ammo for the freeze. Because again, freeze is a very ammo consumption, very heavy, very ammo consuming, I guess. Whereas like icicle is very not, right? That is not the wall. Oh, disaster.
Adaptive circuit.
Oh, okay. I know you're lagging, but gotta talk about that. Sorry. Alright, right here. Wall right here. Pretty good, right? You just kill both of them, right? And then this can't help, right? Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about with the wall. Down, right? Do not wall this, right? If you want a wall, set the wall behind them, right? Set the wall behind them so they can't get help from like an Ana like back here or something. It's unlikely because the Ana's dead, but like if you want to wall behind these people, if you want a wall, you need a wall behind them, right? Walling people up is what Mays do inside a grab to try and save people, right? This is not the grab. This is not the time to wall or the place to wall. You probably shouldn't wall either way, but like this is definitely not the place to wall. The timing, it may or may not be the time to wall, but this is not the place to wall, right? So if you're lagging or you're dropping frames, I understand, but like you need to like just think for a second. I mean, it's easier for me to say that because I can see this, but like I don't know what your conditions are like, but like you gotta like not wall like this. This wall is really bad. And if you get this wall, you need to drop it immediately.
Adaptive circuit engaged.
Just talk all the follow up on the ground. Alright, I'll stay for your next frame, and then we'll go from there. Oh, you're back. So in Soldier, again, on attack it's the same deal, except you can be even more of a rat. So your goal is to get to high ground, right? And to take flanks. So that means, pretty much always, if your team's going left side, you're going right side, right? You're just going up here, you play this spot, and you shoot them, then you come over here, and you shoot them, and you play over here, and you shoot them, and you're invincible because like you're soldier, and they have like no real way to actually chase you down. But like low ground, the enemy team not in play.
Systems in overdrive. Back on my mark. This will heal you.
You gotta not shoot the sick hands as well. Like you just waste a lot of ammo. You give them a lot of shields. It's just kind of not worth it, right? Find something else to shoot, or just like don't shoot them.
60 seconds.
Like it's okay if you shoot them by accident, right? Or like you didn't like you took a second to process it because there's a lot of other stuff going on. But in this case, you were literally just like tracking a sig with his hands up, right? Like with the suck going on, right? Just don't shoot that. You want to emphasize high ground.
Come here
This
and
is
get
terrible when
stabilized.
you can shoot a ball behind a cart, right? And if you came around the corner, you might be able to shoot this guy, but you'd be vulnerable, right? Because this ball is rolling in. Whereas if you're on high ground, you shoot everything, right? If you're on this high ground, you shoot everything, right? But this spot is just terrible. It just feels terrible, right? You just look at it, and it's like, wow, I can't shoot anything. Now you're going to the ball. It's all over the place. You can't crack them. It's all over the place.
Deine Göttin ist da.
You did this last time as well with the res. You just kind of shot like a resing person, and they weren't vulnerable and took no damage. Yeah, they have invulnerability.
Get over here.
Again, if you're on high ground, right, you can make plays. You identify that guy faster. You can shoot him because you're on high ground. If you're over here, you shoot him right from the side. You can't high noon both you and your team if you're on the side, right? If you're over here, like you can duck behind cover, or you can just kill him, right? If you're over here, again, same deal. You just duck behind cover, or you kill him, right? But again, from high ground, you can do things. If you're on low ground, like it's just really hard. So I think that's about it. Soldier has the same problems on offense as it does on defense. Just more exaggerated because offense you really do have to like flank. So overall, so you're McCree, you need to be aware that you're really squishy, and you just get a certain number of shots before people start looking at you, right? So like you just need to read their tension, right? So in certain cases, you can just stand there and shoot because your team has so much pressure on the enemy team that like they can't afford to look at you, right? But in certain cases where your team is like regrouping and like teams falling apart, right, or like we're taking pressure, or like they're ulting and things like that, like you should expect someone to look at you very soon, right? So you start shooting and you need to start backing immediately, right? Or you commit for a hard flank, right? You just run around the side, go flash somebody and kill them, and then run away, right? Slash commit to fighting, right? But you can't really play it like you're not invincible as McCree. You're far from it, right? So you can't just like stand in the middle and just shoot and expect to be okay, right? You need to emphasize high ground as well, especially on soldier, but also as McCree. High ground is so important for soldiers. Soldiers almost unplayable without high ground. You have to take high ground, like aggressively, constantly, and just be up there like permanently. Just be impossible to dislodge, right? If you need to run, grab a mega, and then go right back up the stairs or something, and take that, take high ground again, right? You have heal field as well, so you're self-sufficient, right? You don't need help. You just need to hold that high ground and just keep shooting them from the side, right? What else? I think that's major points for soldier. I didn't really see attack visor at all, so I don't think there's much to talk about there. You just need to not play with your team. Right? This is not a team hero. Or I mean, he kind of is a team-oriented hero, but he's not like a team hero, right? He doesn't stand with the team. He's not like Reaper. Even Reaper, you want to do less of that, right? You want to do more TPing into their backline and then like going in heavy, right? For Mei, you need to like constantly be thinking about walls. Walls are everything, right? Use your crowd freeze more for invulnerability rather than healing. If you're taking pressure, just immediately crowd freeze, right? Don't take risks, don't die as Mei. And obviously use discretion on that. Don't just like get shot by anything in crowd freeze, right? But you know, you get the idea. But yeah, walls. Everything is about walls. Stop trying to freeze. I guess like just in general, like freezing is not as good as you probably think it is. The range is short. It takes a long time to freeze. Emphasize icicling, just constantly spamming, and get your icicles out, and build your blizzard fast. And if people walk into you, or you get close to them with like a good wall or something, that's your reward is that you get to freeze, right? So if by positioning you force someone to come close to you, right? or if by like a wall you allow yourself to get close to them, then you get to freeze people. But you don't get to freeze people just by just naturally. It's just really hard, right? Um, and yeah, those are the big points. Yeah, I think that's everything. If any questions or anything, again, questions, comments, concerns, let me know. And as a quick check to make sure you watch this, if you get to this part of the video, DM me what let's see, 3 plus 6 equals.